Take two.
Yeah. Okay, so should we maybe just get into the story?
Well, we usually do some BS first.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were gonna cut it. Um,
No,
okay,
I
so
ain't doing all that.
all right. Nothing new with me. Um, working, fruit
Same,
selection diminished.
same work. I'm ready to get this week over because we're not working Saturday. Obviously not working Sunday. And I'm leaving Monday for my little mini vacation
Yay!
because Tuesday, so 2 days after this is out, the 28th, nope, the 8th is my anniversary. You would think I'd remember it. I have it tattooed on my wrist.
That's terrible.
Well, the 28th is Roy's birthday.
Okay, that's fair.
So that's where like that. So yeah. So Tuesday, the 8th is my anniversary, which is like the also the big day for the Lionsgate portal. So
It's the 23rd.
oh, this month?
Mhm.
It's a good month.
It is. I usually don't talk about it much, obviously.
Yep, this year will be oh, maybe that's where the 28 came from, because this year is 28 years.
Oh, there you go. That's a
Yes.
big one.
Yeah, so Tuesday will be 28 long.
And do you think you'll make it the next two to make it to 30?
Yeah. Look, I've already made this abundantly clear to Roy. I'm keeping him because I am too fucking old to start over and retrain another one.
Fair.
Not
So,
do not doing it.
are you going to start planning ahead for the 30? Because that's a big one.
Eh. I mean, maybe honestly, at this point, we just like kind of taking trips, going somewhere. For our 20th, we renewed our vows, like just a quick little thing in our backyard. Few family and friends, important ones. Um, and it was cute because at at this point when we did it, both my grandsons were able, they were walking. And we had it so our kids, Judy and Buddy, were like our maid of honor and best man for the renewal.
Cute.
And Jackson escorted Judy from, because we just walked out the back door down the stairs and we had a trellis type thing.
Mhm.
And Bentley escorted me.
Aw, how
Yes.
cute.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was nice. So I don't really see doing anything major for 30th other than maybe going somewhere a little further away. I know I did mention this. It's Tammy's brother that owns the place, and she did comment on our page, so I feel pretty confident I can say the name of it. It's the Surfside Motel in Tawas. It's like a little resort type thing.
Nice.
And if you go online and look at the pictures of the property, it's beautiful. And I was bored, so I was looking at reviews for it. And actually, there's a couple people, I personally don't know them from work, but because we have a Facebook group for our union, I see their names.
Mhm.
and they have left reviews
Oh,
for this
okay.
place, and the reviews, I haven't seen any that were horrible, and that the owner was great and the family was great. So
That's
I,
awesome.
I am very excited,
That
very
sounds very
excited,
exciting.
and I need to get away. Ooh, do I need to get away?
I know exactly what you mean. I keep
Uh,
asking my supervisor where she's sending me, but she hasn't given me a place yet.
yeah, I think this is because we went to Tawas 2 years ago and stayed at someplace else. And I really wish I would have got Tammy's recommendation sooner so I could have booked there.
Hmm.
Because we actually, like, our hotel was like maybe like a city block from away from the place that I'm going to this time.
Okay.
And every time we'd pass it, I'd be like, that looks so much better than where we're at.
Oh,
Yeah, this has like little bonfire pit and gas grill, which I don't know how Roy's gonna feel about a gas grill. We don't uh but there's like a river, and I'm just excited. I'm excited.
cute.
In fact, the day I get back, we'll be recording that night. So you'll hear all about it.
Yay. I can't wait. That'll be exciting news.
Hopefully I have a tan.
Good luck.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, but I've never known you to actually like really tan.
See, I used to go to the tanner. And then when this whole thing started, I was like, no, I could probably go and put like a towel over my head, but I like to breathe. So I
Yeah,
don't I don't know if that would work in my favor. Um,
very true.
but the tanning beds that I work at, oh, Jesus Christ, the place I go to, you can turn the face lights off.
Oh, that's helpful.
So I do that, but I mean, they're still getting the rays. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. Mine's gotten really bad too. However, my tan is just from going and doing stuff outside. I happen to be a good tanner.
yeah, I used to tan until I got pregnant with my oldest. And like I can tan. My arms, I mean you can't see it really in this light, but I'm fairly tan up to my knees, nice and tan. And then from my knees to my ankles, fucking white. And then you get to my feet because like as soon as I get out of work that last day of the week,
Hmm.
I get home, the shoes and socks are gone. And I don't go back into my foot prisons until Monday. So I do have like a tan line from my flip flops.
I have fun flop lines. That's how I refer to them. Because I have strappy sandals.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have crisscrossing lines on the tops of my feet. However, from knees to ankle, well, knees to toes, I'm tan. And then knees to chest, I'm
Well,
white.
well, you do a lot of capris though, don't you?
Yeah,
That would be why.
but it's funny though because I do tank top and capris. So yeah, like the upper and lower half are tan.
Yeah. Yeah, I do miss because actually going in the tanning bed was just so relaxing for me. And up to 9 minutes, that's all they allow is 9 minutes. 9 minutes of pure bliss.
I remember when I was younger, I used to do 15.
Yeah. Well, I know Because see, I've got a Planet Fitness membership. And if they change their bulbs, you can't go in for more than 4. Or at least that's how it used to be. I don't know what it is now because I haven't been there
Wow.
in a couple of years. I
Yeah, I
haven't been,
haven't in forever.
yeah. So
I'm
I,
only ever did it a few times because I could just go outside and tan.
yeah. And see me with working second shift. And lately, I don't know what it is, but I've been sleeping in later than normal.
Same.
Like, I'm normally up 10 o'clock. Today it was 11:30.
Yeah.
And
I've had a couple of days where I woke up at like 1. I'm like, what?
now my one day off, Sunday, 12:30. It was a little after 12:30 when I got up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the quarter to 1, 12:30, 11:30. It's like, what the heck? Because like I was doing really good. I was getting up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I don't know what happened. I don't even hear it anymore. It's still set. I just never hear it.
Same. I wake up long enough to shut it off. And
I don't
I
even know
don't,
if I do that.
and honestly, I'm not, unless we're recording, I don't go to bed any later.
Yeah.
Recording nights, yeah, we're up a little longer.
Yeah, see, and for me, like some nights, like I try to be, you know, positioned and falling asleep before 4. Um, so yeah.
Yeah,
But when I'm off, I try to be asleep by like 2, 3:30.
I am. My sleeping schedule is, at least as far as waking up, it's fucked.
Yep, same.
I'm hoping that changes soon because I don't like sleeping in that late. I like to have time to, I got to wake up and have coffee before I can people. And now I've been trying to quit smoking, as you know.
Hmm.
I am down to 1 a day. Sometimes 2, like, okay, I'm not gonna lie. There was a couple days last week at work. I was stressed and I had to have one, an extra one at lunchtime or after work. Because
Understandable.
they've been stressful days. Like we didn't have a team leader to give bathroom breaks. And it was really, really hot in there. So try not drinking.
Right? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's
That
mm,
would be the day you said you were surprised nobody dropped.
yep.
Yep, I remember that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been fucking fantastic.
That's insane. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. So want to get
Get into
started?
the story?
Huh?
Should we get into the story?
That's what I said. Are you ready to start?
I am. So I am doing the story of Dead in the Water. And this is the young men who have disappeared. And sometime later, it can be any variation between days, weeks, months. I believe one hasn't been found. Um, in water. This is all over the Midwest, basically. Um, so yeah. So hundreds, literally hundreds of young men have vanished, and they're only found dead, in the water, remote rivers, creeks, ponds, canals. In most cases, it's in areas that search parties have already searched, in some cases, multiple times. But then, someone goes by again later and poof, there they are. And in some cases, it seems as if their bodies are placed to be found. So at the time of this book's writing, which was in, I believe, 2016, I'm not 100% on that because I found a couple of different dates.
And
Um,
what book by who?
Dead in the Water by Stephen Young. Or I'm sorry, it's Dead in the Water, Forever Awake. My mistake. By Stephen Young. And I used it as a source because it had the most compiled evidence that I could find, or basically the most compiled of the stories, I should say. So yeah. But anyway, the way in which the people disappear and in the way that they are found, and the fact that the numbers just rose, could be described as sinister, and in inexplicable circumstances. They're found dead, always in water, very often shallow, like very shallow water. In a few cases, like less than knee deep.
Okay. Is this the one where like some of them have been out at clubs?
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you remember
I
us talking about it?
yeah, but and I'd ask you that before and you were like, no.
No, some are, but not all.
Yeah, but like the more famous ones were guys that had went to clubs and yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know this one now. But you
Now
gave
you
me
remember.
because you gave me a totally different answer when I asked you before.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Yeah, when I asked you before, you were like, no. I'm like, okay, this is a different one then.
I don't remember. Anyway, mhm. So these disappearances and deaths started happening in the early 90s. And it's even possible that they were happening before then. It's just, it was harder to access information back then. Yeah, because internet. Um,
Was in its infancy.
yep. So it was a lot harder to keep track of it all and everything, considering it was such a vast statewide thing. And not only that, but it actually was international as well. It happened in the UK. There were a few cases there. I don't have all of the information for those cases. So that's the only mention I'm going to make of that, with the exception of, I think there's one story where he mentions it. So anyway, the numbers are escalating. Nobody knows why. Other victims who have ended up dead, the same way, have left comments on Facebook and Twitter and things like that that make the cases seem like it's more than just a simple, oh, they were drunk and fell in. And it makes, like, to the family, it's a cry for an investigation, that there was something more going on. Whether it's overtly or cryptically, some of the victims are in need of help before anything even happened to them. There's something strange and alarming and sinister that's happening. And as far as I know, it's kind of still happening. It's just not as known. Like it's not as talked about.
Mhm.
One young man wrote on his Facebook page within hours of his death, "Not afraid of death because I'm so curious of what's next." The answer may not be the most obvious one. College boys are going missing and then later found dead, some not at all. And some have drowned elsewhere to be found in water. Like the water doesn't match up with where it's found. Like it's pond water and they're found in the ocean.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And according to a retired NYPD, sorry, I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up. Kevin Gannon. They've been abducted, held, and sometimes for an extended amount of time, mentally tortured, killed, and then placed in the water, in his opinion. He also says the evil is rampant and deep and widespread. He was tortured, taken to the river, and killed. His body was positioned and taken to a different part of the water, says one of the mothers. The victim type is almost always the same. And actually, we were kind of discussing this earlier. It's athletic, popular, high achieving, typically white male, college students. And they're typically going missing after celebrating a holiday or out celebrating a birthday or, some type of event. In some cases, it's just that they were with a group of people and wandered off. In some cases, they're actually being kicked out. And I say that because there has been a couple of locations that claim that the person was not kicked out. So, in some cases, it appears that some things are fabricated. However, it also makes me think that there's a potential for something more going on, which I'll explain later. So in some cases, they're portrayed as drunk or overly drunk,
Mhm.
but yet friends, family, or what have you will say, well, they didn't seem that bad, but yet they're portrayed that way.
Right.
Or I believe it's in one of the cases where while inside the person is normal, they go out for a cigarette, and then they're seen staggering away on video footage. Like it wasn't that long. Having a cigarette doesn't take that long. How did you go from being normal to being drunk in that little space of time while having a
Right.
cigarette? So some say they're drunk and disoriented, fell in the river. Many say inevitably that the reason they're all similar victimology is because more young men than women would choose to walk off alone at night. Pissed off woman? Yeah, we're gonna storm off. I'm sorry. Am I wrong? Piss us off, we're gonna storm off.
I mean, I guess it depends on where I'm at. If I'm at one of the bars, um, here in Saginaw, like off Hamilton, no.
Okay, so think about this. Like in Dan's little town, very likely. In my little town, very likely.
I
Okay,
don't.
well, anyway,
I'm not really a bar person, so unless it's bar food,
same.
then
I am
well,
down for bar food.
there is never a bad time for bar food, ever.
My not this last pregnancy, but my second to last pregnancy, so child 6, um, I craved bar food 24/7. Oh my God. It was terrible.
And I live by 3 bars.
At that time, we lived by a couple. He would pass a couple on his way home. It was a whole thing. Okay, anyway. They will say that they are popular college kids who are letting off steam, and just drinking too much. And as a result, they're having difficulty walking home. I don't know that I've ever known someone to be so drunk that they completely forgot their way home. But that tells you how much I drank as growing up,
Well,
because I don't know those people.
yeah, for me, it wasn't drunk so much as high. And I left my house, made it to, we were actually going on a snack run from my house to the party store that I worked at. I worked at this store. So I walked this route on a very regular basis. I got lost coming home.
I send you those bubblegum stories from TikTok. You need to submit your story.
Oh, I have several.
Did I send you the story where he's carrying the grocery bags and by the time he gets home, he's only got one left?
Maybe. Yeah. Oh,
I've never been that high. I feel like I'm missing out. And let me tell you, when I was younger,
I have a fly in here and he's pissing me off because he'll literally fly like right in front of my face. I don't know if anyone can see him like as he's flying by, but he's pissing me off. He's gonna me to death.
I hadn't noticed. I'm sorry. Okay, back to the story. So others, however, will ask why they would choose to walk away from their direct route home, often for a long distance to a river or creek or shallow pond, usually in the middle of winter, without coats or winter coats, and go for a swim or fall in, rather than go straight home. This is the same scenario for almost all of the victims. The majority of them were former lifeguards, swim team, athletic, so well built, in excellent shape. Many excelling as athletes as well as academics. Most of them were not known to be particularly heavy drinkers. They were all highly intelligent and understandably not prone to jumping into rivers and lakes in freezing temperatures on their own late at night, miles away from home. So, I mean, that kind of changes the story a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It makes me wonder if any of them were like drugged.
We'll get to that.
I know.
So
But that's always the first thing that came to my mind because I have heard a couple other podcasts about this. And that's always the first thing that came to my mind. Maybe they were drugged.
in a couple of cases, I'll say this, in a couple of cases, there were drugs in the person's system that they were not known to take. So, Someone who drowns will usually be found floating face down in the river. I know you kind of touched on this before.
Yep.
So one victim was on his back, had his arms crossed over his body, and another was bobbing up in the water. I don't even know how that was possible. In an upright position. Another was held in place by two small sticks, displayed there, waiting to be found. And why have some bodies been found half in and half out of the water? If they drowned, they would be fully in the water. If they were out of the water, they wouldn't have drowned.
Probably not unless they were shit faced.
That takes a pretty heavy level of shit faced, which comes to point. So why do some of the toxicology reports show drugs they had never been known to take? Why have they not fought back or struggled? Very often they have no injuries whatsoever, indicating that they haven't struggled, even though they were drowning. Obviously, the very sinister implication here then is that they were either unconscious or dead when they entered the water. Some have no water in their lungs, however. How do you drown with no water in your lungs?
Oh, what?
How do you drown with no water in your lungs
You don't.
if that's your cause of death? Accidental drowning. Exactly. Um, so have apparently drowned in the water. Drowning in water is not a common suicide method, with less than 4% of men choosing this method. In fact, it's especially difficult to commit suicide in shallow water. And furthermore, it would require weighing oneself down to make the body heavier. Several of the men have phoned friends to say that someone or people are after them and that they're in fear for their lives and that they haven't done anything wrong. Who's after them? And does this implicate the police or perhaps people pretending to be police? Meanwhile, there are stories of possible near misses in which young men describe attempts by strangers to lure them outside of wherever they're at. Because in some cases, it's just like house parties and it's just random people there.
Sorry, the
Get
supplies. Pissing me off.
it. So I said, get it. So why do some parents of the deceased young men talk about the unknown people being seen at the scene of a disappearance, of strangers chasing them and of being terrified for their lives? In the book, I marked the wrong page. I'm terrible. There's a long list, of questions that parents and detectives and friends have in regards to the cases to these young men who have drowned. Why do they make desperate phone calls just moments before something happens to them? Why are some of them in such a state of terror or horror when they phone their parents or friends? Why would their cell phone suddenly go dead after they've said something very disturbing? What are they seeing in the final moments before the phone is cut off? Why are they later found in places searched multiple times before? Why are their bodies placed in strange positions as though arranged by someone? Why are many missing one shoe? Why do a few of them have, or why do so few of them have any signs of injury? What did one man mean by look in the periodic table before he vanished? Why is graffiti sometimes found referring to hydrogen? It goes into an explanation of that, which I have for later. Why does leading criminologists say this is terrorism? They operate as cells. But it's not terrorism as we usually understand it. It's something very, very different.
Now, is that
That's a
from the
criminal.
book?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is a criminologist working on the case saying this. So yeah, and these are parents who've been told, oh, sorry, it's accidental drowning, or it's unintentional suicide, drowning and hypothermia, things like that. Like, no, he didn't die. Read this, look at this. He wasn't in that state, these kinds of things. And so many wonder, is it all just, a fabrication? Is it that need for an answer? Is it looking for things that simply aren't there? Or does a very unusual cabal exist that no one would have ever thought, which is obsessed with both deliverance and immortality? The evidence suggests they're more powerful than the Illuminati. They believe they can't be caught. They believe they're above reproach, and that they're untouchable. One person, Vance Holmes, asks of a case, how could he have been capable of getting to the river in which he was found, given his intoxication level, and refers to it as too drunk to drown. He's like, I understand, he may have been drinking. I understand he may have stumbled away from his friends unnoticed. I understand how at the water's edge he may have fallen in. What I don't understand is how he got there in the first place. His blood alcohol was 0.32%. Holmes then quotes from a guide providing breathalyzer tests. So this test that actually puts out, the company that puts the test out actually gave the referencing material for how, when it's given to read the results.
You can't do a breathalyzer on a dead person.
No, the alcohol in the blood.
Okay. Oh, like a toxicology report type thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Did I not say that? I'm sorry.
No.
I may have been writing frantically at this point. I'm not 100% because that did happen several times. I would go on a tangent. And I think I did for this one. So the symptoms of anyone who has a blood alcohol between 0.25 to 0.40%, they are inability to stand or walk, have a stupor, a loss of motor function, impaired consciousness, a sleep or stupor. If someone is so drunk that they're at this point, they can't fucking stand. So if someone is that drunk to where they are passed out, how are they walking to the river? According to profilers, the estimated number of cases is well over 300. How does a young man appear fine one moment, disoriented and confused the next, and then suddenly disappear? Uh, and then end up dead in just a couple feet of water? Why can he not be found for often what amounts to weeks? Why would he go to the most remote body of water, always in the opposite direction? Um, the thing about it, the months in which this happens, it's not summer, it's winter. You know, anybody who lives in a state where they have a full winter, like, you know, the northern and Midwest, you don't know, you don't wander off without a coat. You don't wander off without some type of winter gear and protection because your ass will freeze to death.
I mean, you're gonna freeze, but you may not realize it because usually someone that's drunk, like me, I can be freezing, and if Roy's had a few drinks, he'll be like, "Why are you cold?" Because I'm not pickled at the moment. So, I mean, that one could be answered as people who are intoxicated get warm.
But at the same time, they would have gone to wherever they were with this stuff. December, January, February. Yeah, you're not going without a winter coat.
Right. You're not going anywhere sober without a winter coat, but
Exactly.
you might go outside to cool off, have a cigarette. But again, if you're drugged, that's going to explain going from being able to stand to being,
And that is also, well, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Sorry. Okay, this is ranging from September to April. The coldest months for us northern people. It doesn't happen in the months expected, which in itself highlights just how strange the cases are. In the case of Matthew, who disappeared in Hoboken, New Jersey, reportedly by a friend, he was not drunk. He went in the opposite direction, took the objects out of his pockets, jumped in the river, which it was snowing heavily. And then there was graffiti found in the area, which caught the attention of two retired NYPD officers due to the publicity around the Wisconsin and New York state areas, because we had several in our states. And I do remember some of the cases, just not like the specifics of them or
right,
anything. So yeah. And at some point, I will get into the Wisconsin cases. I'm compiling a list of the Wisconsin victims and just a list of victims that as I come across them. So I won't do that list until the end, though. So an investigator who was not related to the official investigation had photos of a drawing which was two eyes and a mouth, which the graffiti found at Pier 1, which was the site in which the body was recovered, was the word, it's not really a word, it's H3YME. And they were wondering, is it a sickening taunt? Is it just a simple tag? Or is it more than that? Because if you kind of break it apart a little bit, you get why me, you know? Or is it something that doesn't make sense to outsiders? Is it totally unrelated? Quite possibly. However, HY3 is in the periodic table. It's tritium, which is hydrogen 3. This is where I went off on a nerd tangent. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Pull out your nerds if you're not interested in nerdy science periodic table things. However, it is somewhat relevant. Okay, so tritium, or H3, which is also called hydrogen 3, is a rare and radioactive isotope of hydrogen with a half-life of about 12 years. It is a relatively weak source of beta radiation, however, which itself is too weak to penetrate the skin. However, it can increase the risk of cancer if consumed in extremely large quantities. It can enter the body through inhalation, ingestion, and absorption. It's a gas, and when combined with phosphor, it creates a particular luminescence, which they use for electrical wiring. It is apparently also ideal for exit signs, runway lights, or emergency lighting, commercial buildings, things like that. It's also a trawler in a biomedical and academic research because it's used in boosted fusion weapons and thermonuclear weapons.
Why?
Hi. So though the quantities are several thousand times larger than in a keychain, consumer and safety devices containing tritium for use in the United States are subject to certain possession, resale, and disposal and use regulations. So, did you catch how long its life is for?
12 years.
It's a half-life of about 12 years. Remember that phrase.
Okay. I won't, but we'll pretend.
Okay, well, remember this. Biochemical and biomolecular and bionuclear weapons potentially involved with this chemical. Okay, so one of the identifiers for this isotope is SMILE, simplified molecular input line entry. I don't know how the hell that equals SMILE. So to the two investigators, it was clear that the men had not gone into the water willingly. It was also very clear to them that this graffiti was related. They're like, bingo, yes, please. Of course, many have dismissed this graffiti as being irrelevant, and they could be correct, but it could be a message left in plain sight. As for the retired detectives, they would argue that it's easy to dismiss when those dismissing it have not walked the crime scenes like they had. With decorated retired Detective Gannon even going so far as funding his own investigations by remortgaging his home. Like, that's how determined he was in these cases. He was like, I know there's more. There was something going on, and I'm gonna prove it. Good for him. Sorry he had to remortgage his home, but good for him for being the dog with the bone that wasn't letting go.
Right.
So he was so convinced of the crimes and so adamant in his desire to stop this from continuing to happen. However, the most sinister one was found in Iowa. It was a face drawn in red with devil horns. Next to the face was a note that read, "Evil, happy, smiley face man." And again, we can accept or dismiss this as evidence, but this is not all of the potential evidence, it seems. Our message is still being left in cryptic ways. Unless investigators in each drowning death are looking for it, they probably won't come across it. Having spoken to the original profiler of the case, he's of the opinion that without any doubt, messages are still being left in various forms. He also pointed to the international aspect of these deaths, asking if he had seen the following: an outbreak of drowning deaths in Ireland. When I took a cursory look into them, I found the graffiti of the smiley face. Is it just chance? Is it luck? Well, it's just one of the many mysteries of the cases. Of course, it could quite possibly be an absolute red herring, something that when in fact is just a series of random graffiti. In the complexity of these cases and within the realm of possible suspects being exceptionally wide ranging, it's easy to hone in on an aspect and run with it. The possibilities are a quagmire, muddied and confused, and run very deep. The graffiti is just one tiny part. However, allegedly left at the scene of Matthew's death with the first death face, the Heimweimi thing. It's interesting that tritium, a continuant of H3, is what's currently spilling out of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. That's poisoning the water. Isn't that great?
Lovely.
Yep. It is also the isotope in the H. They have a great source of it right there. H3, however, is mostly comprised of H2O, water. So it appears to be an explicit reference to water, or it could say to a massive and genocidal incident. Not really sure. Though if you just take the water part, however, obviously this is the very thing that the men are drowning in, or rather found up dead in. Is it a mocking message? On the other hand, H3YME is also the name of some Twitter users. Don't go down that rabbit hole, trust me. Several, in fact. And it's, almost impossible to trace all of those. Particularly given that newspapers of, I mentioned the graffiti, sorry, I apparently went off on a tangent there, lost myself. Okay, so Hoboken had put out a news article in regards to the mass amount of graffiti that was found, within the various areas. So it's possible, it's just graffiti. It's also possible it's related. But H3 is also a computer game. And in this instance, there are two cases that overlap, or rather that are very similar, but with different endings. The computer game H3 was launched in 2007 as a first-person shooter game on Xbox. Neo Babson Maximus, who was a world-class player at another first-person shooter game called Half-Life. Did you catch it?
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah. He played the game called H3 I should just pull out his whole victim page. But I'm gonna wait a minute. Okay, so this guy, he's an interesting character, we'll say that. He left a cryptic message for his sister. And he told her while fleeing through the woods, and that's through cell phone pings that they figured that out. Just before he disappeared, look under the periodic table. An interesting side note is that communication through these types of computer games are almost impossible to monitor. And that's why terrorists use them. It enables messages that are sent between cells of terrorists like ISIS to disappear and leave no trace. They're perfect for illicit conversations and, like I said, almost impossible to track. Forbes magazine actually wrote an article about this exact aftermath of the Paris bombing in 2015. 2 Call of Duty players would write messages to each other on a wall in a disappearing spray of bullets. And it may sound ridiculous, but there are many ways like that in which you can talk to someone in a game and it can't be tracked. And considering how much I've been playing Fortnite this past week, definitely. Yes, 100%. Totally believe it. So whistleblower Snowden revealed that the NSA and the CIA actually embed themselves into online computer games such as WoW, or more known as World of Warcraft, in an attempt to try and infiltrate the virtual terrorist meetups. And of course, the ability to find the communication from the group who abduct and drown young men would be almost impossible to track unless they knew how to do the exact same thing that these other people are doing in their attempts to infiltrate the terrorists. They have to know, the where, the when, the how, all of it. It would require tapping into an enormous amount of activity, and that would seem a nearly impossible task, because imagine thousands of people on one server and you are looking for the needle in the haystack that says, hey, it's us. And not only you ain't even getting an us, you're getting a one person. So then there's the dark web via the Onion router, where anonymity is virtually, although not always, guaranteed. Or perhaps they're using like some Snapchat thing where text messages disappear after reading. However, for some of the cases, Snapchat hadn't been invented yet. And so that's why they kind of refer back to the older online games and stuff like that. On the other hand, if people aren't specifically looking for clues and hidden messages online, it's possible that they've been leaving them all along and it's just nobody's finding them. Would they necessarily still want their messages found? Don't terrorists usually like to taunt and, put it in people's faces? Even higher level operations such as secret societies and, Illuminati are said to leave messages in plain sight. Charlie Allen, the case of Neo. I'm going to do his case report real quick because it helps to kind of tie in some of the rest of the cases. And it's why they start looking at other aspects. So his case was actually in 2007 in October. Solid backing here. So his given name was Charles Allen Jr. He then changed his name to Neo Babson Maximus because of the game H3. This Neo Babson was the main character. However, Charles was the #1 player in the world for both of these first-person shooter games. And the Half-Life game. It starts when Neo's sister called him to ask him why he deleted his Facebook account. He replied that he hadn't, and then began to become very frightened and frantic. He told his sister that people were after him and he wasn't safe. And his sister said that he sounded confused and he wasn't making any sense to her. He told her to go home to their parents because she too was now not safe, and that their father was the only one who could protect her. He said he sent emails to important people, and now these same people were after him. He told her to look under the periodic table of elements for the answer. When he ended the call abruptly, that was the last time she spoke to him. He then called his parents and left messages. His father's has a strange message, which sounded like he's running at the time, and it would later transpire that he was running through the woods, and then his phone is turned off. Charles had only recently officially changed his name to Neo, and he changed it in part to reflect his infamous online persona. Charles was reported to be #1 in Half-Life for some time. Of the worldwide game revolves around a central character of a scientist who must fight his way out of a secret underground research facility where research and development is done into teleportation technology and have gone disastrously wrong. According to his friends, he'd been having a normal day before he made these phone calls. None of them knew, however, that he was supposed to be taking medication for a bipolar disorder. And although he had decided to stop taking his medication, he seemed to be doing fine. He thought he no longer needed it. However, his behavior was still normal, so that his friends were completely shocked that he even had a condition at all. Like, that's how normal he was. They didn't have a clue. His parents said that they hadn't spotted any signs that he was about to spiral. They also said he had never suffered a breakdown. In the past, most people, when looking at cases, believe, like in this case, others might say it would be a very strong coincidence that he happened to believe his life was in danger and that people were after him, and then disappeared because he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Surely the chances of that are pretty minimal. I mean, can you imagine it? Being off your rocker because you're not on your meds and imagining that someone's after you. So you freak out and you run somewhere and you just happen to be where there's a killer and you weren't meant to meet up with that person, but because you were in a mental state and you ran into the woods, you did, and you died.
It's almost like the Elisa Lam thing.
Yeah.
She wasn't taking her meds.
But this is the only one in the cases that I have found that was supposed to be on meds. Or at least this is the only one that I have found that has mention of it. It's the only one. Okay, so according to his friends, he had spent the day on campus, played some tennis with some friends. Apparently it was a game he took very seriously as he was trying to go into it professionally. He had arranged to meet friends later that evening in the college car park to go to a party, but he never showed up. See, this one, he wasn't at a party, he wasn't drinking or anything like that. He just disappeared. The next night, however, he apparently broke into a woman's home, entered the bedroom, believing it was the home of his friend Mason. But when the woman woke up, he apologized politely and then jumped out the second story window to the ground and ran off into the woods, making his case similar to Mike Knoll, who also wandered disoriented into a woman's home in 2002 in another part of the country. After disappearing outside a bar, and 4 months later, his body was found positioned half in and half out of a lake that had been searched and dragged multiple times. However, Neo's sneakers and backpack were found in the woods. He is currently still missing.
Damn.
Yes. I looked it up just a few days ago. He is currently still missing. When police investigated his computer, mind you, he's a gamer. He's gonna have shit on there. They found that everything had been cleared off.
Hmm.
That made my heart sink. When I first read that, I was like, wait, this man who is a gamer, #1 in the world, multiple games, and his computer is wiped. Ask your son. You'll watch his
Oh, I
heart
know.
sink too.
I know.
Um, so yeah, everything had been cleared off. His family never believed for one moment that he himself would voluntarily delete everything, including his emails, from his computer.
I don't think a person alive really would. I mean, really, all I use mine for is Zoom stuff, like podcast stuff.
Mhm.
But I've got all of our past episodes saved
Mhm.
to my laptop. I'm not deleting that.
Right.
I mean, I could, but I'm not
Now,
gonna.
now imagine if you're a gamer and you've got games on there and ranked top.
No.
No. That's not happening. I don't care who you are.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so are we ready for more sciencey shit?
Sure.
All right. So it seems to be all there was to go on after private investigators, and police failed to find the missing man. Like Matthew's alleged graffiti, the why me Heim thing, Neo may have been referring to an element in the periodic table. Jacob Vaughn thinks he had found the answer. The clue in the periodic table may be what they call a half-life. H for hydrogen, Al, aluminum, F, fluorine, that gives you half, Li, lithium, Fe, iron, gives you life. So, another allusion to the elements in the periodic table. But again, like the reference to a computer game in Matthew's case, the game Neo was most known, he was most known for the game Half-Life. He'd been #1 in the world at this game. Had his abductors been communicating with him through the game, there would be no way to trace that. How does this link to a Google keyword search for Matthew Genovese, which give me Matthew's case here. Matthew was found January 23rd of 2016 in the Hudson River in Boston. He was 24. He also disappeared after leaving a bar. His coworkers who were with him said he didn't appear to be intoxicated. Strangely, his billfold was found on the pier beside the water, seemingly untouched, as if placed there. He left around 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, and he left to go home, which would have been a 10-minute walk that he knew well. However, the following Monday, when he didn't show up for work, his work called his family, who then reported him missing after not being able to reach him. And having determined that no one had seen or heard from him, it had been snowing heavily. The next day, Tuesday, a detective searching by the pier and river found his wallet with all his belongings appearing to, even the cash, appearing to still be in it, as well as his car keys. When his body was recovered, police say that there was no obvious trauma on his body. Toxicology was pending at the time. Graffiti found at the scene was a drawing of 2 eyes and a mouth at Pier 1 with the word Heim. So Matthew Genovese, the word half-life, led to a blank website, yet where the words in the search show up as Matthew Genovese shows up with Paint It Red and BRB and gotta run to Home Depot. Yeah. Some of you may be wondering where the periodic table even comes from. I lost myself. I'm sure we all remember having to learn it, but who actually remembers any of the periodic table? I certainly don't. I had to look this shit up. Okay. So interesting thing. Alchemists. Alchemists came up with the periodic table. They're often described as the first chemists. They developed an extraordinary language, or rather symbols, to describe all manner of things, from chemical reactions to philosophical tenets, and alchemy, at its most fundamental, is a principle or belief. It can be the main principles of a religion or a philosophy. And this is important because it could possibly be a vital clue as to the kind of people behind this. This could quite possibly refer to something which, as its motivation, could lie in the realms of the darkest underworld and yet be in search of the highest divine source. A search for transcendence of the soul, a search for salvation through illumination, for salvation through dark alchemy. In Duluth, New York State, in 2004, 2 boys disappeared in quick succession. See, I didn't have it all entirely together. It was just mostly. I didn't have my notes actually in order in which I needed to read them. Okay, so pretty sure this was the case anyway. October 10th. I think so. Nope. Grant Gieshart is found dead. That same day, Nathan Williams, whose nickname was Fish, was scheduled to return from his fishing trip in the same area. Later, he too is found dead. Nearby the location where Grant was found was the graffiti "Flow with the Fishes." Ironic considering a guy nicknamed Fish disappears the same day.
Yeah.
God grants pure wishes. Both of the boys' names appear to some extent within the message. Taking the keywords of Neobabson's Maximus and H2O search results on the internet include a Japanese website, and it appears to be some type of forum. The message appearing to be spam, yet all three of his names, and their usual, appear alongside H2O. And other words that appear to be talking about fixing a shower, and obviously water-related subject, even perhaps a possible method of drowning the victims, because it's in some cases, people are gone for 4 months. Are they being taken and mentally tortured and then drowned in a shower to be tossed in a river later? So blogs are, sorry. Okay. Possible method of drowning it. Blogs are notoriously unmonitored, as are many forums, particularly older ones. And that is why groups use them to communicate. Could these killers be communicating through unmonitored forums and blogs? In order to know if these were real clues or messages, of course, a cyber forensic analyst or a coder in the NSA is needed. Until then, it's just amateur attempts. In order to prove this particular theory, good Lord, that was a mouthful. It would take both an expert and a significant amount of time. After all, there are at least 300 similar cases. But perhaps it does show the importance of thinking laterally when approaching this phenomenon, if nothing else. If you think literally, it ain't gonna work because nothing adds up. So as a more curious fact, that H2O is not in the periodic table. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I thought it was. But then at the same time, I guess it makes sense because hydrogen, you have 2, oxygen, 1, creates water.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that water itself is not on it, considering you're using 2 of the elements on it to create it. So, however, another keyword search results, which led to, and this one had not only his name and water, but also half-life. Even though it wasn't used, yet it has come up with his full name, and which, it's a new, keep getting tongue-tied on you, unusual, H2O. This message also appeared to be spam, yet it had his full name and half-life and multiplayer. H2O and BHY. BHY is actually the abbreviation for bulk hydrogen. Like, H3. Hydrogen is on the periodic table, obviously, and it originated from the ancient Greek words hydro and genes, literally meaning genes and genetics, DNA. Whether this is a message or not, it does make one wonder if there is any possibility that these men are being taken for some kind of genetic or DNA experimentation. The young men are usually Caucasian, European ancestry. The same message also had TFGVAK. Is it just spam or a typo? Interestingly enough, TFG refers to genes again. It actually is a protein in humans, which is encoded, and among its particular pathways, this is a disease, cancer.
So now you got cancer coming. This is wild.
And it's all based on like weird things that pop up when you look for these people. Like, why would you get these weird letters when you search for someone's name? You know what I mean?
I get emails for penis enhancement.
That's a
Spam
little,
happens.
yeah, spam happens, it does. And that's why, they say, is it just spam, or like, does it actually kind of go? Because, it's the periodic table, it's genes, it does refer to what he, talks about.
I have penis earrings.
Oh, did you get the guillotine earring video I sent you?
I've seen those.
I was like, oh yeah, I sent it to her. Okay.
They're
So,
actually in my cart.
okay. So this cancer gene, it is hereditary motor neuron disease. And it causes spastic paraplegia. Yeah. Before Joseph Smedley disappeared, he posted an article on his Facebook about the reprogramming of DNA being observed in human cells for the first time. Another web search for Joseph Smedley led to a site called Brine. Okay, it's another one I gotta spell out. Okay, it's
Oh,
brine.esy.es. Briny eyes.
okay. What's that?
Um,
Or
it
is it
could be in,
brown eyes?
it could be in reference to briny seas where they're being found, saltwater.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, some of this stuff sounds like kind of a reach.
Some of it, yes. Okay, so we're gonna go back to retired detective Gannon. Jesus Christ, I'm screwing up his word. Okay, so he interviewed February 2016 by Sybil Marcellus for Chasing News. And she had been perplexed about the number of young men mysteriously drowning, with reference to older cases, yada yada. At that time, there was only 100 being under the same modus operandi. And in this particular case, it was referring to Eric Munsell, wondering whether or not he was one of the potentials. I don't know if I have his whole story.
Is it this one's called like the smiley face killers one, isn't it?
No, it is actually not the same killer. It was proven that there was actually 2 different killers. It's
Yeah,
not the same.
that's why it's smiley face killers.
Okay. I don't think I have that one, so I'm just gonna read what I got here. So he would not be able to say without looking at the autopsy and toxicology reports, saying that they're just dump jobs, and that it's been scientifically proven through forensics that they being the men, have been to bars, abducted, held for a period of time, murdered on land, and then they are drowned, except they're not drowning, they're being dumped in these bodies of water. And the case that he worked with a retired detective, Anthony Duarte, they began their investigation. There was at least 40 young men who lost their lives. The cases that they looked into spanned many states, and sometimes 2 college boys would disappear in different states on the same night. Then later they would turn up dead in the water with no water in their lungs. And this Matthew, I think I said his no, Eric Munsell, he is one who had no water in his lungs when he was found. Of course, the first thing that comes to most people's minds is serial killer, but it's not that easy. A serial killer can't cover the vast ground between the two disappearances that occur on the same night. Okay, well, then you look at a pair of serial killers. Well, it would require more than one killer on site to manhandle their victim and abduct them. So not only would they need a pair of killers for each killing, but they would need multiple pairs. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so what the modus operandi of whomever appears to ensure the target is properly sedated and isolated, and made vulnerable enough to ensure that their snatch is easy, swift, and successful. I think he's fallen over. But they're wondering
Sounds like me.
why are some of the bodies placed into positions which are wholly inconsistent with that of a drowning victim? Why are some of the bodies found half in, half out? Why very often do they have no injuries, indicating that they have not struggled, even though they were drowning, in such little water? Strangely, a common factor is that many times the young men have been seen in the presence of not only unknown young people, but older people, cops, and bouncers. So strange, perhaps, but it's just not that clear cut. So that's what I have for that portion so far, but I am going to read some of the other cases. Hi, how you doing?
Mm.
I saved it. That was talented. Okay. Almost done, I promise.
Okay.
Till next time. These ones don't get as scientific and all of that the other ones do. So we have Zachary Marr, who disappeared in Harvard, Boston, Valentine's, February 13th of 2016. And he actually disappeared 2 days before one of the other cases. He disappeared while out with cousins at a bar in Boston. He was reportedly not allowed back into the bar after going out for a smoke. And this was confirmed on video. And it is said that the bar personnel deny, that they wouldn't allow him back in. And it is shown on video that he did not try to re-enter. At the time, the police released a statement saying that they have him on camera as he enters the cold Charles River. It was a cold February night in Boston. Why would a young man go down to the river and get in when he had only gone out for a smoke? And at the time of releasing the releasing that they had surveillance, they still hadn't found the body. Evidence that day, to no avail, family and friends say at this point there were no signs of him being suicidal, calling the theory of suicide or going out for a swim nonsensical, saying there is simply nothing that would suggest that he voluntarily and willingly took himself down to the river and jumped in fully clothed in the middle of winter, and as an apparent, shockingly common reference in many of the cases. Also, not being allowed back into the bar is common in many cases. Even the ones that were international also said the same thing, that they weren't allowed back in. However, the video surveillance shows him leaving at 1:20 a.m. He sent a text to his mom saying that he wasn't allowed back in, and to his friends who were inside. And yeah. So that leads, actually, no, sorry. What did I say? 2 days before. Toter. Where was my toter? Oh, I don't have the whole story yet. That's fine. And this person's last name is Toter. Yeah. I'm sorry, family. I'm sorry. So we will jump to this one that takes place Christmas 2015. Lehman College in Cunny, New York. This happens to be the Bronx. Anthony Urena. He actually technically disappeared November 14th, but he was found Christmas Day. It was believed that his body had drifted from Harlem River to the New Jersey side of the river, from Harlem to the Hudson, where he was found. He had last been seen leaving a nightclub in New York City around 5 a.m. He had been missing for 6 weeks. At the time of the book, it was unknown if he had been in the water the entire time or elsewhere. For some of the time he had been missing, or for some of the time he had been missing, he had called a cab when he left the bar, but for some reason, when it came to collect him, he didn't take it. Instead, he walked across to a late night food service stand to get something to eat. He then wanders away. And as he walks, he appears unsteady on his feet. The surveillance footage shows him apparently intoxicated. Interestingly, there is a strange car coming down the road the wrong way, down a one-way street. They're trying to pull me in Saginaw, going the wrong way down a one-way street. So it then turns around, going the right way, doubling back for him, because apparently he had like knelt down or fell down or something, and it took him a minute to get back up. So after he falls, like the car turns around, goes back. And at this point, he disappears from view. He's gone. Police say he must have fallen in and drowned at the point he was last seen, which was Harlem River, and that his body was then swept into the Hudson River. However, at the time, the water was reportedly below knee deep. Yep. You're going to hate that page. I'm sorry. I'm not there yet.
I might be sleeping by the time you get there.
Do you want me to stop? I can stop.
If we could.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm so tired. I'm sitting here watching myself and I'm making my eyes go big because I'm like, ugh.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, this case kind of consumed me. So would you like to know my theory?
Those weren't your theories.
This is the majority of people's theories out there. My theory, slightly more sinister than what is actually put out so far. Which is a combination of medicating the people and mind control or manipulation. Think about it. A person is in a state of inebriation, even if it's mild, they're easier to hypnotize and get to do whatever you want them to do, which would make sense. Why? If the person called a cab in a normal state of mind, and then all of a sudden the cab gets there and they're like, what? No. You know what I mean?
Like, had he had communication with anybody?
Don't know. They only talk about those video footage of outside the bar.
I mean, I guess it makes sense.
And like the one, he had reportedly tripped on his way to the bathroom over like a leg or something on one of the chairs, and he was deemed drunk and thrown out. I'm
Bless you.
sorry. And even though family and friends say no, he wasn't drunk, he just tripped, and then he wasn't allowed back in.
Hmm.
That's my theory, is that there's something along that lines happening to get people to willingly do something that they would not ordinarily do.
Right. And I could say like maybe the bars have something to do with it, but if they're not all coming from a bar,
Exactly.
so then that's not it.
And that's why it's hard to pinpoint, because like, this piece fits here and here, but it doesn't fit over here, but the piece that fits here and over here. Hi, welcome to the world of my wormhole.
See, and like I said, I've heard this one.
Yeah,
But yeah,
this
you
is
you
not the
you
first
took
time
it,
I've fallen into it.
like you have definitely taken it to a level that I've never heard before. And really nowhere in the book associates it with the smiley face killers.
It does talk about how they were at the same time and that there was the possibility of it being the same. However, it was later determined that it was not done by the same.
I think I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to
Yeah.
listen to those other ones again because I know like the detective's name is super familiar.
Well, it would make sense if the cases were so similar that the detective would work on both of the cases. And at the same time, it's also probably very easy, considering, to mess up which victims go to where.
Maybe. This fly's gonna fucking die.
I don't know. At the same time, though, there's just so many unanswered questions for these
Yeah,
cases.
it is one that it's crazy that at least one person hasn't been caught.
Yep. And then, like, even the case of the Neil Babson guy, the one who actually left voicemails, and all of that, he's never been found. Or like the one case where he had posted on his Facebook something else, I forget what it was, um about, oh, I remember, about how if he's found dead, it wasn't suicide, and yet his cause of death is listed as accidental suicide. Swear to God.
Okay.
He posted like within the week before he died that if he is found dead, it wasn't suicide. And police never investigated. They found him in the water, said, oh, accidental drowning. That's it.
That's crazy.
That's what gets me. Okay, ma'am. Go to bed. Tell Roy I'm sorry.
Oh, he's probably out like a light.
You can apologize to him tomorrow for me.
He'll be all right.
All right.
All right. Well, everyone have a good weekend. Of course, this comes out on Sunday, so enjoy your day.
And I hope you enjoy your vacation /
Thank-
anniversary.
Thank you. Like I said, when we record next Wednesday, I'll tell you all about it. Well, most of the stuff.
All right. Bye.
Bye.